The Two Caps and the Coffee podcast where two friends are chatting about the topics that matter most to us over a coffee and bringing you into the conversation. Your host, Caden.
And I'm Renee.
Today, we really want to talk to you about Capricorns. What does it mean to be a Capricorn? So, Renee, before we jump into this and before everyone else hears about it, we really need to have like a set of disclaimers. We're not professional astrologers. I classify myself as an astroho, and I definitely think it's perfectly fine to say we focus on Western topical astrology. We use our own birth charts a lot of times whenever we're talking about things, and we're talking about our relation to what it means to be a Capricorn, because we're both Capricorns, right?
Yep.
So I kind of was thinking about this topic today because I thought, it's our first full episode of the show. Um, it's about two Capricorns, the show title, Two Caps, and then it's us, two Capricorns ourselves. So I really wanted to dive into this and kind of jump in. And what does it mean to you to be a Capricorn?
See, I have an interesting perspective on this just because, I have Capricorn in unique parts of my chart, but I actually feel like since there's more, air energy, I'm more of, I tend to lean more towards, the capriciousness of the Capricorn way. So, I don't know, it's, if I could describe it, it's like having a high level of productivity, but never feeling like it's really high or feeling like it's super easy to get done the things that I do get done. So I don't feel really productive. But then also there's the seriousness and the maturity and being the mom of the friend group kind of naturally, just because I don't know, I've seen some stuff. So I feel like I grew up really but that's how I feel when I think of what it means to be a Capricorn, just very high level. What about you?
Me, I also lean into the energy of it. So in my chart, I have a lot of Capricorn placements, like a lot of Capricorn placements. So to me, I almost feel like a quintessential Capricorn in that regard, in the term of very, very earthy. So it's like I work well within my own space. I work well with my own things that I know, my wheelhouse. That Capricorn vibe is willing to still keep on pushing and trucking through things and just not stopping. And that's also how I feel in a lot of the things that I try to take on, is that I may not always do it perfectly and that kills me, but I do never stop until I feel like I've really mastered it to the best of my abilities. And then another thing I would say about Capricorn is that I think we're such a funny sign, literally a water goat that is an earth energy. I don't understand where that came from per se, but I think it's hilarious that it's just so silly in nature to me, but it's also so endearing and so lovable, and so I feel like a lot of times misunderstood. I don't know how you feel about that though.
I think it's funny that Capricorn's Capricorn is so funny. I think Capricorns mesh well with other Capricorns, for sure. So I think we get each other's humor. It tends to be drier humor than most other folks, but
Very earthy humor.
yeah. But in terms of I don't know, the things that get misunderstood, I think it's just because Capricorns tend to be very pragmatic, and if I can describe a Capricorn, it's talking and living in bullet points and timelines and things that need to be done. And oftentimes we end up having a tendency to be rational in emotions, or in situations that call for more emotional responses. So it can seem like we're a little bit out of touch with, dealing with our emotions, or other people who may be more emotional, maybe water signs might find us to be brick walls that are hard to get around. But I mean, we work well with water signs because that's how water works with the earth, right? It molds. Even though the earth is hard and it's a tough substance, water still can break through it. So I think that it's I hate to say Capricorns are an acquired taste, but kind of are an acquired taste. And we're not everybody's cup of tea, and a lot of people sure as hell aren't our cup of tea.
Talk about that, yeah, for sure. There's definitely signs out there that I don't like at Capricorn, for sure.
Just state it. I think for the folks at home, what we can do is like we kind of have talked about it a little bit, but if you're not familiar with like Capricorn, as a sign, as a way of being, a personality, just a couple of like typical things that Capricorns are described as. As Kaden said, we're the sea goat. So there's a little. It's funny because we're represented by this animal that's like mythical, it doesn't exist, but it has a combination of water and earth energy in it. So even though like we don't seem like overtly or outwardly emotional, we definitely still have an emotional compass within. It's just not something everyone gets to see. So sea goat ruled by Saturn. So a lot of Capricorns are very like they're your tough love kind of dad, right? That's what Saturn's all about. It's about rules, it's about order, it's about what has been done in the past in order to shape the future. So Capricorns are very much like systemic, and they know what they want and they do it in a very like, ABCD kind of way. Ambitious, sometimes called a workaholic by the less motivated. Serious and mature, as you kind of touched on before. Conservative, that's like from that Saturnian energy. Not conservative in the sense of like, like real woman vote for Trump kind of thing.
Oh
But
God, yeah, no,
that way,
not this.
but more so in like a more withdrawn, like subdued. So you're maybe not going to see a Capricorn, jumping off buildings and, being your crazy nightclub friend. But of course, everyone's different. But we're on the more conservative, like reserved side. A bit mischievous, as Kaden was saying. Like we're not all work, no play. Like we're mischievous once you get to know us. And for example, in tarot, that mischievous side is like represented as the devil card. So I hate the stereotype, but like I guess Capricorns are the devil in that sense in tarot. But it's because of the mischievousness and like like messing things up a little bit to kind of show you a lesson. Um, Playful around friends. We're pragmatic, stubborn. Can be pessimistic sometimes, like choosing to see the glass as like half empty, so we need to work to fill it up. And persistent. So if there's something that we want, we don't stop until we get it. So very high level, those are some of the traits that Capricorns normally possess. So I have a question for you, Kaden. What started your astrology journey? What got you into astrology?
So, like, I've known about astrology, I guess, like, nothing major or anything, like, years and years and years. I can't really name, like, the one place where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's definitely that. That's where I first learned about it. But I can definitely tell the first time I really started getting into it was with you, Renee. We were in Thailand together working, and we like lived together, or not together, but like close by and everything. Like literally floors separated us, and we would just like clicked as people in our team group and everything as friends too. And then we were like, oh, we were looking like we came back. I think it was in January around our birth times or birth dates or whatever, and then we were looking at like our birth chart off the cuff for some reason, and we started diving into this, and we got our own birth chart and like all the details that it started talking about. We were like, oh my god, this is describing us perfectly. Why is this so like resonating with us? What is this? And then like I found out that I had so much Capricorn inside of my placements in my chart, and I was just really really surprised. Um, and then I really started connecting to that sense of what it means to be a Capricorn, and the sense of like, we always span our season spans between 2 years. It's always like the end of one year, beginning of next. So it's always that season of change, that season of planning, that season of doing something different, starting new, starting fresh, and just like rebirth in general. And that's really where I connect in terms of like Capricorn is that like if you see the people who identify as a Capricorn, who their placements are in Capricorn, those areas really get, I feel like, reborn consistently. They're always like innovating in themselves or innovating the things in the areas that they're working in. And I really like that because I always wanted to be like a badass bitch when I grow up and like have my empire of like things that I have going on and stuff like that. And as that like is my type of dream, that's such a Capricorn thing to say in itself, is that I want to have all these businesses, I want to have all these things, I want to like own it all. That like in pure sense of like owning it, you know, is super Capricorn in nature. And it's embedded in me. It's like in my blood, you know what I mean? What about you?
Oh my god, it's so funny to be like, I bleed Capricorn. um,
Right, super dramatic, not
right.
Capricorn at all.
It makes sense because you have so much Capricorn in your chart. So like you see it, demonstrated in so many different areas of your life. It's hard to like deny its impact. But for me, I get it's kind of like the same as you. I think before our experience in Thailand, like I didn't really like believe in anything. So I wasn't like a super religious person. Um, I didn't lean towards any kind of like, way of being, belief system or whatever. I think being in a country that is so allowing of different types of like religions and different types of expressions and faith and things like that, it was almost natural that we kind of started to like delve into this thing that we all had in common. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm a Capricorn and you're a Capricorn, and our boss at the time was a Capricorn, but you and I are very similar, but he's you know not. That made me curious. Like, how can we all be Capricorns, but then like, we're very similar, and like this person, I don't see any of those Capricorny traits in the obvious way in him. And of course, like as like a baby, like Astro, how I couldn't see it, but now looking back, I'm like, I totally see it in him too. We just have different ways of expressing ourselves, which is like important to know with astrology too. Like we're Capricorns, but we are not Capricorns in the sense of like our personality isn't only dictated by, the different signs and planets in our chart. Like our life experiences mold us, like our belief systems mold us as well. So if you're listening at home, it's not like it's like my religion to be Capricorn, or, if you're not a Capricorn in the traditional sense, you're not a real Capricorn. Like it's not that. So I didn't know that at the beginning. I was kind of like, yeah, he's not like a normal Capricorn. So like, what's the T? And I don't know, this is like a random. I don't even know how we got into birth charts. I literally don't remember what spawned that for us, or like, I don't know. But anyway, we got into that, and then watching more YouTube videos on it. Of course, tarot naturally becomes a part of the conversation. Started watching more
of YouTube videos.
Yeah, like intuition tarot, and just like like, oh my gosh, she's talking about like this sign, and she's like, for some reason I'm picking up Capricorns, really resonating with this, and both of us are like, oh my god, we're Capricorns. So
that's us. Yeah.
So that like interest in astrology, interest in tarot were kind of just growing together, and it was something I started talking about more and more and more with people around me. I was gifted this book called like The Secret Language of Birthdays by a former boss. So learning more about like things like decans and different, how if you're born in this part of Capricorn, like you're more like this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it literally was just like random, and then my experience with it just grew through curiosity. But today I'm at a point where I can say like I think astrology can be interesting and informative, but I think that there are other powers at play when it comes to dictating the way your life plays out. um, I don't necessarily use astrology for like things like divination. um, I'm more so like, okay, what are the energies surrounding, life right now based on like where the planets are. And then from there, you can make choices on the way you want to live. And you can choose to ignore those, or you can choose to like lean into that energy a bit more. So yeah, that's.
I gotta say, going on that idea of like using energies around whatever event, action, stuff like that. Whenever I would be looking at my horoscope throughout the week and everything, a lot of times my horoscope as a Capricorn is just telling me to like prepared to face some type of conflict. You know what I mean? And the way that people fight conflict is either literally fighting it or like accepting it and going with it. So to me, like it's definitely helped chill me out. You know what I mean? It's to like feel more grounded in where I'm standing and not feel like I have to like buck up against something all the time. That it's okay for me just to stand guard and stand where I am and not have to feel like I have to fight for everything in my life. And that's a very like I would say, a component of that idea of being a Capricorn is that you have to fight for everything. You aren't giving anything, so you have to go and take and everything like that. And you don't have to be like that. But it's a different aspect of what it means to be a Capricorn is someone who just holds on to what they have and isn't willing to give that up. Whether it be their peace, whether it be their friendships, whatever, you know what I mean? They will fight for those things and hold on to those things. And I would definitely also say, diving into this whole astrology stuff, it's crazy the type of community that you see and like who you are surrounded by and how that impacts like on you. Because at the time we had our boss, who's still a really good friend to us. We have ourselves. I've also learned that my mom is a Capricorn. I learned that my aunt is a Capricorn. My family has a lot of Earth placements everywhere apparently. And like the people I connect with, I connect with them, and then later on, I ask them when their birth chart is, or like their birth chart and everything like that. And I ask them like their birthday, year, date, month, sometimes time, if I can get to it. And it's always like I really, really connect better with the Earth signs, especially Capricorn. Those are always like friendships to me that are just the most dear, and that's also like a stereotype that we get into is that Capricorns only really like each other, and even then it's sketchy sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we're just a sign where it's like we get along primarily with other earth signs. So Capricorns love Capricorns above all else, but it's like, yeah, we can like also get down with like the Virgos and the Tauruses out there. Versus
Love
like,
me a Virgo.
yeah, right, versus maybe fire and air signs getting along very well normally. We just are not like that as earth signs normally. Granted, I have very incredible friends that happen to be Aquarius folk, and I vibe with them, but I think it's also because like you could claim that it's because like Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn, so like they get the, you know, formulaic way that Capricorns like to work, but then they also have like their own spontaneity because Aquarius are the weirdos of the zodiac. But I think that that spontaneity kind of like plays well with Capricorns. Sometimes, not all the time. I'm not saying like if you're a Capricorn, go out and find an Aquarius to be like your crazy, quirky friend. Because sometimes some Aquarius folks are very, very, very annoying. But it's not all of them. Not all of them.
Speak the truth. Speak the truth.
But in terms of like just other general questions, like how do you feel about your Capricorn sun in terms of like, because some people will have a birth chart that is more indicative of like struggle and like overcoming their like birth giving placements in order to reach another level. So do you feel, exalted in your Capricorn sun? Like how do you feel about being a Capricorn?
I think it's a like if you think about the signs, right, in terms of a karmic circle, and so Capricorn is the end of that cycle, and it's two before Pisces, which is the ultimate, if I'm not mistaken, going off the top of my head here. So like with that being said, that means we are the close to feeling all of like the karmic beingness that we could have, and we have experienced everything from an Aries up to us. So like to me, what I see that as something as that like I love and I can understand and I feel whenever I am going through those things of like, oh, I'm feeling very fiery today. That's something I've experienced in my past. That's something that like in terms of my sun sign is like what it's bringing me to and bringing me through. And I see it as like it's a stepping stone, and I have to like and love and live in where I am right here, right now, before I move forward. Because I feel like if you don't do that, and if you're always looking for like the next thing to do, the next jump to make, you know what I mean? You're going to skip over those lessons that Capricorn is trying to teach you. And I think that like the idea of Capricorn teaching is to me very like synonymous, because as like a Capricorn, I feel like you have to go through life's lessons and you have to read them and experience them in full in order to really understand like what's the beauty of life, to where you can build your own whatever it is and have it be whatever you want it to be and create whatever you want. You know, as a Capricorn, it's said that we're super serious as like children because we take the world very seriously. You know, we got to do, we got to be, we got to do whatever it is, you know. But then as we grow older, we grow a lot softer and a lot like more full of life, I would say, in that sense. And that's exactly how I feel about it in my sun placement, is that like I definitely was the person who did not care about the people I was around whenever I was around them in my past. But the older I get, the more I try and take note of who I'm with. Do I like that feeling? And tracing after those feelings of things that I love and enjoy versus just, oh, how can I get to my next step in life? How do I do this next? Don't get me wrong. I definitely do have those ambitions, but I'm not only focused on just those ambitions. Now I'm developing a lot more layers, and those layers includes like familial ties, love, all that stuff. What about you? How do you feel about it in your sun?
Um, I think that actually, so I always go back and forth in that I don't feel like I'm a proper Capricorn so many times, but I think that that self-criticism and also the stubbornness to like against being just labeled as a Capricorn is very Capricorny in nature. Like I'm very much like, yes, I have like these like signs in my chart or whatever, but they don't define me. I'm blah 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 blah. And like just resisting something that just is like, and the fact that I was the one who like went on this journey is such a capricious thing to do in my opinion. um but I definitely feel that kind of like softening that you mentioned, because when I was younger, I feel like I was very, like I had a very sharp tongue. I would always, be very witty in a meanish way. I wasn't a bully, but like I was a person that like you don't want to make me feel some type of way, because I'm gonna roast the hell out of you, and I hate saying that because I haven't said roast in so many years. It feels so like ew. Um, I definitely feel that softening that happened over the years, and for me, I think that that really happened once I was out of my familial environment and was placed in like a completely different, like when I was in a foreign country. Um, I think that's where the softening really started to happen, because then I was no longer in a space where I felt like I had to maintain people's image of me. Um, Keep in mind, I'm also a Scorpio rising, so when it comes to public image and stuff like that, I'm already very secretive to begin with. So I'm in a place where I don't feel like I have to be secretive. I don't have to protect myself anymore, which is another Capricorny trait, being very protective, things like that. I feel like I was able to mellow out and become myself. Michelle Obama, Capricorn, and the becoming, right? So,
Ugh, love
right,
that.
Miss Kathy's. But yeah, and also I think that the combination of having a lot of air in my chart, as I mentioned before, makes me more of a person that like I'm a dreamer. I have big ideas, like I know what I want. A lot of people say that Capricorns are not really dreamers, they're pragmatic. They know. I dream so much. I dream, I have conspiracy theories. I'm always sending Kaden like 20 voice notes in a row. Like, Kaden, I had this realization and I need to share it. It's Aquarius Mercury. So
Mm.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like yes, there's some of like the more basic Capricorn traits of like, being stubborn, being like ambitious, like knowing what I want in my life. I don't necessarily want to have like a, an empire in the sense of like maybe their like supply chain business, like logistics kind of thing. I'm more of like it would be nice if I had like a social media presence that allowed me to do whatever I want and make money and live the life that I want. Period. Something I also didn't mention is like everyone's always like Capricorns are obsessed with money. No, I'm not obsessed with money. I like to have money to afford the lifestyle that I want to live. Like I don't think that's being obsessive at all, but yeah, that's what I would say about my Capricorn sun. I feel like there's more to it than just that, and like if you get deeper into astrology, like you'll know that is a fact. It's not just about your sun sign. Um, but I definitely still think I do embody some Capricorn ish traits that have gotten me to where I am in life today that I appreciate.
Where else do you have Capricorn in your chart?
I have it in Mars, which is funny. I also have it in Jupiter, but it's on the Sag Capricorn cusp. Like I'm in the 0 degree of Capricorn when it comes to Jupiter. So that was something I also didn't realize until very recently. Like my life coach and I were having a call, and she was like, "You have Capricorn in Jupiter, but then like not really because this is also like you have like Sag energy there because you're right on the line." Um, and then I was like, okay, like I get it because when you think of Capricorn and Jupiter, Jupiter is not really exalted. It's not at home in Capricorn, which is a sign of order, and Jupiter is a sign of like expansion. And so like you come into Capricorn and it's like expansion in small, neat, perfect boxes. But Jupiter is at home in Sagittarius. So it's kind of like a I like to see it as like I go back and forth between like wild and crazy unexpected growth when I let go and I don't try to control the way I grow. But then when I do try to control the way I grow, I still can grow, but it's not as like massive and like uh I don't know, exciting as it would be if I just released that control. But then I also have it in Uranus and Neptune, which are more outer planets, generational. I don't really feel like they have a huge impact on my personality. But yeah, what about yourself? Since you mentioned you have Capricorn almost everywhere.
So I have a lot of Capricorn energy. Like I said, I have it in my rising. I'm a Capricorn. Sun, obviously. My Mars is a Capricorn. My Venus is a Capricorn. My Uranus is a Capricorn, along with my Neptune as a Capricorn. So if you think about it in terms of like planets, right? Outside of my rising, that means I have it in my Sun, Mars, Venus, Neptune, and Uranus. So five of my planets, which is a crazy amount. First of all, it's super rare that they're all in the same sign, but then it also like means that it's conflicting energy. And I recently learned about this, is that like, for example, how it comes through in terms of like my sun, I've heard it so many different ways. I heard it that like because it's in so many placements, it's just a lot of chaotic Capricorn energy that can't be filtered or like sorted through. I've heard that it's good chaotic because it means that you're a mix of everything that what it means to be. I've also heard that like the sun neutralizes certain aspects of the negative parts of the other planets. So like in terms of like Mars and Venus, like Mars being super masculine, Venus being super feminine, they kind of neutralize out, and it's just like more like non-gendered type of energy that's sent in. But it's just the truth is, no one really understands how it plays out in all of my chart because of how complex it is that it's everywhere. Um, but I also love that, right? That makes it something of like I can choose that energy that I'm working with myself, and I can choose how I see that it works. Because some people feel like, oh, this is just the energies that be, and I just, I have to lay here and just take it, or I'm out of control, or you know what I mean? And as myself, I always want to be in control, aka because I'm Capricorn. And sometimes I have to learn to let control go. But then there's times where like I have to take that control, and I get to choose when to go and when to like press on. And that's just like how it plays out in my chart, at least. Very wild. It's very wild, but I love it. It's a lot of fun. Other than that, because it's a lot of earth energy, which is why I'm super chill. I feel like I have a lot of like I have water. I would say is the next highest, which means just like it's emotional stuff. So like my moon is in Pisces, which means like, I present myself as a Capricorn, and I am a Capricorn, but then my emotional, like, tearing eye self is like crying in the background, myself in the dark corner by myself, just over here, complete darkness, enjoying my Adele sad girl fall all to myself. And I love it. I like that that's how it is. I like that, like, I can be vulnerable and choose to show my Piscean nature when I want to be, because it can bring me strength whenever, I have that vulnerability and I let it out instead of just holding on to it.
Right.
So, yeah.
All the places that we can go with astrology. I have more air in my chart, like just in general, because when you look at our inner planets, so that's like your sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, Mars, like those are the ones that I normally say like those are my inner planets. Jupiter and Saturn are like your transition planets, and then you have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto that are more generational outer planets that have more of an impact on the way a generation functions versus like an individual. That because I mean the other planets are more like down to the minute. This is how you behave. Not even
Yeah.
to mention like the planets that are in our houses or the signs that are in our houses, right? So it can get very fun. But something that is interesting about me is I don't have any other kinds of earth energy in my chart. It's exclusively Capricorn. Um, but I have every other type of air in my chart and every other type of water in my chart. And I have Pluto that's out in Sagittarius, like actually firmly in that sign. So I feel like it's Capricorn with all these other like airy and watery elements to kind of clarify it a little bit and support like that growth, which is why I think that like yes, I am Capricorn, but no, I am not Capricorn in the quintessential way. You know what I mean?
I feel yeah. So then, what is the most capricious thing you've ever done?
Um, it depends on the nature of like the conversation. So I would say that in the recent years, in the past like 5 or so years, would be going from 2 piercings to 18. And actually, I'll say going from 4 to 18 in the span of like 7 weeks. Um, I just decided, like, hey, I am 25 now and I can do whatever the hell I want. So I'm just going to go and get a bunch of piercings and hope for the best. And even though I work in a professional environment, hoping for the best. And even the fact that that is like something that I'm like, that's capricious, also shows like the conservative nature of a Capricorn. But then also, I think, going to Thailand after you recommended it was definitely probably the most capricious thing that I've done in my young adulthood in the past couple of years, just because like I am from the US, born and raised in New York City, so city girls. And to go from, and I was living in Texas at the time. So going from Texas to literally the other half of the planet on a whim, basically, I think that, like, yeah, that was pretty capricious. And also leaving my full time 401k job to work in a nonprofit organization making pennies on the dollar. Um, but having like the best time of my life, I think that that was one of the things where it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter if like it's not like the most like perfect decision. It's like this the decision that I want to make. And of course, like I made the best out of that situation and ended up doing even more in the organization that we were both a part of. And it 100% led to bigger and better opportunities afterwards. So it still is always full circle with a Capricorn. I wouldn't have taken a risk if I didn't think it would have a payoff later. So that's me. What about you?
I would say I probably have two things, and they're kind of interrelated, but I'll start off with this one first. So in college, freshman year, I switched out of like electrical engineering because A, hated it, B, definitely did not feel adequate, and I switched into international studies. Then, as a requirement for international studies is that you have to go study abroad. Out of every country I could have chose and like look up, do research on and everything, the instant I was told that, I was like, "Oh, I want to go to Spain." And it was just like I knew nothing about Spain. I'd never seen Spain, never even looked up Spain, did zero research on defining that. And I had time to choose because I didn't, this is like freshman year and I didn't study abroad until my junior year. So I had years to do any slight change or like looking into anything. And I was like, "Oh no, this is just something I want to do." And when it came up to it being around time for me to figure out and actually decide where I was going, which would be like the end of my sophomore year, and started like applying to places to go for the beginning of my junior year, I started applying to Spain. And in less than 1 year, I somehow gathered all the money and the financial resources I needed to go to Spain. And I had zero preparation beforehand and I had no idea about anything about Spain or anything like that. And I studied abroad in Spain, and it was something that like it was just an idea that I had that I just innately fell and stuck with, and did it, and somehow pulled it all together, and did not go into financial debt. And I had no idea how that happened. You know what I mean? It was like the most capricious thing because it was just like literally an idea into reality, and I feel like that's super super Capricorn. Another thing that I would say is that my tattoos that I have three tattoos. I've only gotten that tattoo for a country that has like a significant reference to me in my life. So like I've either visited there. Like my first tattoo was a stamp it is a stamp on my foot, and it says "Made in China" because I was conceived in China. So from that point on, all my other tattoos have been about like other countries and my relation to them. So essentially my sister has now developed this name called Passport as a nickname for me because all I do is just get stamped around from the other countries I'm going to, aka getting tattooed from other countries. And I refuse to get another like tattoo unless it's about a country. Like I'm strictly sticking to the vibe of getting tattoo countries. Like that is it. And the idea of sticking to like only one type of vibe of artwork is super capricious because it's just like I'm only doing this for the vibe. I'm only doing this for this aesthetic. I don't care what it does to my body. I don't care necessarily how it looks because it has to just be about this idea. You know what I mean? And I think that's super Capricorn of me. And I love
It's
that.
because like we kind of have similar stories. So I was a computer engineer my first year of
Ugh,
university. Hated
so
that.
sorry.
I was like, I'm not an engineer, but I only did it because I thought, that was a fast track to getting to, I don't know, having a lucrative career. And I ended up being an international business major later on. And, I was that was like sophomore year, like middle of sophomore year that I transferred. And one of the, how I kind of made a case to my mom to like let me go to Thailand. I was like, I need to do it to graduate. Like I'm supposed to like study abroad or intern abroad, and like this is technically an internship abroad. So like let me do it. It's for my degree. I'm not doing it just because I want to like continue in this organization that we're in. No, it has a proper practical reason. And then I came back from Thailand and switched universities. So it was like the like, oh yeah, it's because of my university, oh whatever. um but no, I did the exact same thing. I tried to do the engineering thing, it didn't work, and then I went for the global thing. And I mean, I'm still interested in that. And yeah, I'm still working it out, so yeah.
I think it's funny because my mom also told me to go into computer science, computer engineering, or whatever. She's Capricorn. She told me just to do it so I could switch into petroleum engineering and make more money. So I don't know. There's something about, Capricorns and money. You denied it. I denied it. Maybe it is true at the end of the day.
I think that when we're on autopilot and when we're not really aware of the way that, financial gain can control the way we live, then yeah, I feel like money becomes like a really, really important thing. Because either you didn't grow up with enough, in your opinion, or you grew up in a household where money was like the primary currency, not in terms of buying things, but like buying affection. So it's like if you did something, your parents liked your behavior, they would give you an allowance or they'd give you some money, or if you wanted to prove your worth, it was by how much money you were making at work or whatever. um but then, like, I feel like in terms of like just general happiness, I have and will continue sacrificing money for that. But I know that, my big, lofty dream is to not have to sacrifice happiness and or money. Like, I want to be able to be happy and live like the quality of life that I want to live and not have to be counting pennies. Like, I'd rather just like live almost irresponsibly, which is like, I think I totally resonate with like as we age, we kind of become more playful and become more like relaxed. And like I feel the same way. I want to make enough where I don't have to feel like I have to be uptight and be like, super responsible or like plan out, okay, but if I buy this, like what's rent looking like? If I buy this, what's my utilities looking like? Oop, let me turn this light off because like utilities like this month, it's the first of the month. Like I don't want to have to live like that forever, which is why it matters to me because I want to be able to like truly chill out.
I feel that. That is such like that vibe. I identify with that so much. And it just I feel like, probably like a lot of people's dreams too, and I can understand that. For people who are like, "Oh my gosh, they're talking about astrology. I hate astrology." Yada. Look, we love astrology. We do not let it ruin our lives. We do not let it run and control our lives. I mean, if you've ever been annoyed by an air sign, you're probably an earth sign. If you have ever, really just looked at an Aries and be like, why are you throwing this temper tantrum? Astrology. Quite simple as that, and it just really allows you to just let people go, love it, and let it be. And that's just like how I feel about astrology. But,
So, role do you think astrology should or does or could play in like your day to day life?
I think in my day to day life, I use it just to be aware and kind of like check myself on my own energies. You know what I mean? That I have swirling around me. So, say, like, a lot of times I listen to a podcast and it says, like, hey, really focus on this aspect of your friendship and your relationships this week or today or whatever. And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, doing that with my relationships. The people I care about the most. I need to try and put in that effort because that does not come naturally to me. It does not mean that like I don't love anybody. My mind is not on, oh my gosh, I need to make this person feel the best they possibly can every like day and month, I possibly can. I need that like little voice saying, hey, you probably haven't been showing these people that you love enough love in these types of ways. Make for sure you're doing that. Or it's telling me, watch out, there's a fire sign coming to like piss you off and don't let it piss you off. And this I really try to give love to and say, you're right, I can do that. I can extend myself to be that person and show that love and, necessarily fight my capricious nature, but to like live into it. And then over here, where it's like this fire sign's going to steal your energy, steal your peace, steal your happiness if you don't watch out. That's where I can like hunker down, be stubborn, and be like, I'm not going to let it. I'm going to choose to be happy and let it be happy. And that's how I use it. That I don't use it in terms of like, oh my gosh, I need to go down and buy a lottery ticket because this is my luckiest day of the whole entire year or decade. Even though it could be, that's not how I use it. What about you?
I think that it's changed over the past couple of years. Like in the beginning, I used to like when I first learned about it, I was almost too afraid to take a step without knowing, what was like going to happen astrologically, or based on what like tarot was saying. Like it was like dictating like my day to day. And I think as I learned more about it and lived a little bit more life, like the hold astrology had on me definitely like released and completely mellowed out, to the point where it's like I keep track of the moon. Yeah. Um, sometimes I'm like, okay, I am sacrificing relationships because I'd rather focus on myself, which is like my Aries South Node. I'm aware of like that tendency, and I see that behavior in myself. Um, so it's more so of like, if there are any things that I know I want to improve in terms of like my relationships or my quality of life or like my mentalities on things that I've been able to identify in my chart, then those are areas that I pay a bit more attention to and strive to be more considerate of, kind of like what you were saying. Um, but like, for example, I don't actually really like listening to horoscopes often, um, just because most horoscope readings are based on your like rising sign, and I don't like the way that they kind of act as if my rising sign is like representative of what my entire chart. Like there's no acknowledgement of like my Mercury or things like that that have to do with like other parts of my chart. And as I said before, I'm a Scorpio rising, so when they're like, this is your season, Scorpio, or like, control all of your watery energy and things like that. Yes, it's true when they're talking about, the signs that are in my houses and stuff, but I don't think it's a proper representation of my life and things that happen in my life. Maybe I'm being stubborn though, because I mean, Capricorn or whatever. But I've also found that it's easy to be that person that's like, oh, like, let me check their birth chart to see if they're worth having a relationship with or like worth talking to.
100%. Mm-hmm.
And I found that like when I try to make situations perfect and I try to control them too much, it still ends up like exploding, because some of my closest friends, I've never seen their birth chart before. But we're so compatible in the sense of like we're really great friends. And I think having that strong attachment to what's in someone's chart, are we perfect, has a lot to do with like, fear of things failing, fear of things falling apart, which like most people would blame themselves for that, especially the Capricorn's going to be like, how did I forecast this? And how didn't I see this coming? And, maybe next time I have to be more aware and more precise and things like that. And I think that life feels better when it's spontaneous and it's fun and it's not as premeditated, so that when cool things happen, like you feel even more excited because it was random. So I don't know, I love the randomness of life, so I try to release my hold on astrology and tarot. Like watching tarot readings kind of leads me down a rabbit hole, so it's like maybe only once a month maximum, and then also being aware of like, I take what I want and leave what I don't want. Same with like a religion, like a lot of people are like devout Christians, for example. I grew up in a Christian home, and in today's world it is very much take what resonates and leave behind what doesn't, even if you're like, the one of the most sweet, kind, religious people ever. We don't adhere to everything because not everything makes sense to adhere to in our day-to-day life anymore. So that's how I am. I feel like I'm aware of astrology, and I'm aware of like my shortcomings as dictated by my life experiences and validated by astrology. Like that's important. Dictated, validated by astrology, and I work to improve those parts, but I don't let it control the way I live. So yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I mean, we're both on that same side of like we don't let it control us. We use it, or we just, we have it playing around in the background. It's nothing that we like, oh my gosh, I have to do this today. Oh my gosh, I have to do this today. It's more just like, okay, cool. This is nice to know. This is good to be aware of about these things. Well, Renee, I feel like it's come that time to close this first episode. And I want to say thank you for sharing with me about like what it means for you to be a Capricorn. And I appreciate everything you said. For everyone who's listening or watching us on YouTube, feel free to, leave a comment, interact with us, and tell us, like, what does it mean to be your sun sign if you're not a Capricorn, for example. We want to know, especially from you fire signs. I know I gave you a lot of crap this time around. Look, I respect you. You have your own need, and you know what? I'm here to listen. Maybe we can come to some agreement, but tell me what it means to be your sun sign. Do you have anything else you want to say, Renee?
Yeah, make sure you follow us on social media. Like, we love what we do. We really want you guys to be a part of the conversation. Like, the conversation doesn't end when this episode ends. It can continue, but that's relying on you talking to us. So thank you for listening to us. We really appreciate it. I don't want to say Capricorns love an audience, but we do. So yeah,
I'll say it.
Follow us on all socials. So yeah.
Okay, and thank you so much, and have a good day.
Bye, everyone.